Summit of the Future and all the discussion. I mean, the world faces escalating challenges, from climate change, wars, authoritarianism, to hyper inequality. And of course, in this time of profound uncertainty, as we also heard from Professor Clayton, the need for a robust, reformed, and accountable UN has never been greater. We are at a crucial time, which has been repeated time and again. And of course, in this context, the vision of a UN 2.0 emerges, a vision of a revitalized multilateral diplomacy. So what I will focus on are three issues. First, not surprising, human rights and what is the space of human rights, and then the structures, and finally on the inequality. The reforms that we are now going to discuss for the coming weeks, months, years have to be firmly anchored in human rights. Since the inception of the UN, it has played a pivotal role in establishing global norms around human rights. The adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 was a monumental achievement, making a universal commitment. And I actually think with the pact and with the enforced language of human rights in the pact, we have again underscored the universality of human rights. I think we have to leave behind us all the talk of particular tradition, religions, etc., that runs counter to human rights. Human rights are universal and they should penetrate all our actions. However, despite the critical role that human rights plays in fostering global peace and security, as we just heard from our distinguished moderator, only 4 to 5% of the UN budget is allocated to human rights. And as we all know, a budget is not only a line of figures, but it's also a moral document, documenting our values. Allocating 4% to human rights is not only a financial oversight, but an ethical failure. A more equitable budget that reflects the central role of human rights will enable the UN to better fulfill its mandate. Prioritizing human rights across all UN agencies and programs is essential to addressing the root causes of poverty, conflict, or inequality. And now I know many will say, but isn't that exactly what the UN is there to do? Isn't that what they do on everyday life? And I just have to say no. That is not what happens. It should be what happens, but for very many, if not most of the UN agencies, human rights is far distant. And right now, just these weeks and months, we see that the UN cuts the human rights advisors linked to the resident coordinators. That has been a very simple instrument to move the human rights issues at the local level through the UN agencies, and that is now, due to budget restraints, being cut. So it's high time, and it's definitely not there. Let's turn to the multilateral diplomacy. The structure of the UN, particularly the Security Council, reflects a post-World War II geopolitical reality, which definitely no longer aligns with the needs of our time. And that has been addressed extensively, and I think it's really unique that we, in the Pact for the Future, that issue is now addressed, and hopefully the discussion will move forward. In that discussion that will follow the adoption of the Pact, we should not only focus on the balances between countries and regions. Of course, yes, it is important, it is crucial, it needs to be recalibrated. But we need more, and civil society should call for more. We should call for systems that reflect much better the voices of more people, of the people on this earth. We saw for the action days and in the preparation of the Pact for the Future, how the youth have played in a unique manner. I have walked in and out of UN doors for 40 years. I've never seen such an active engagement by youth before. but not only the engagement of the youth, but finally there were also someone in the other end that were actually listening. So there were voices and listening, and that is something new, very promising practice. Another avenue to bring more voices of people is recognizing that people actually live locally. More than half the world's population reside in cities. Cities are on the front line of the global challenges we face: climate change, migration, economic inequality. That was recognized for the first time in the SDGs, in SDG 11, emphasizing the importance of cities in creating inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable communities. Yet, the role of the cities in global governance is overlooked. So in the future UN, cities must be given a stronger voice. Mayors and city governments are increasingly innovating and addressing very complex challenges. Their involvement in international diplomacy can foster a much more practical, grassroots solution-oriented development as well as peace building. And they already collaborate in big networks such as the UCLG, 250,000 cities collaborating, C40, which is very well known, I guess. Human rights cities, I would say that's the fastest growing city movement in the world today. Cities in that way can be, in a way, the epicenter of dialogue. And as we know, dialogue creates trust. And I must say it has been heartening to listening here the past few days to all the very good examples of very local level initiatives at the city level. So let's do much more on that. My final point is on the inequality. One of the greatest threats to human rights and democracy is the growing inequality, both between countries as well as inside countries. Hyper-economic inequality erodes the very social fabric of our society and deepens political instability and weakens the foundation of democratic governance. A reformed UN must place a global emphasis on reducing the economic inequality. This is not only an economic issue, it's a human rights and a democratic issue. So we need bold policy reforms aimed at redistributing wealth and opportunity. We need to focus on taxation, corruption, and a whole host of initiatives to create a higher level of equality. And in this equation, I really need to underscore that it's high time that the financial institutions such as IMF and the World Bank understand, finally take on board that all rights should be included, including economic and social rights. They have been profoundly ignored by these institutions. They are reluctant to address them, but they need to take them on board if we are to meet the SDGs as well as some of the issues raised in the pact. It is extremely positive that we see in the pact, I think it's commitment 53, that states will now look at developing a parallel or additional way of looking at the GNP. I think civil society should really jump on this one, push very hard for a human rights-based well-being economy for the future. So to sum up, the pertinent next steps are, first of all, strengthen the UN human rights institutions, both structurally as well as financially. Second, in the future UN institutions should be, in the future human rights or UN institutions should be based on human rights, inclusion and transparency. And finally, all efforts should aim at working towards a human rights-based well-being economy. Thank you very much.